WeWeb and its new changes basically. So WeWeb just made a lot of changes and they released a new type of, or I won't say a new type of WeWeb, but they released a new WeWeb more or less. And the news is that WeWeb is full stack now, and they call it WeWeb Unify. And in this video, we're going to be looking at what it is and how it's going to impact your projects more or less, and what to look out for are the advantages, and my own personal opinion about some of the things I noticed. So let's go into the release notes that they dropped first off and see what it's all about. And so, like I said, web is now full stack, and instead of you having to bring your own backend, I call it BYO, be bring your own backend instead of bring your own bottle. In this case, you bring your own backend. So previously, web was a front end only tool where you could manage your front end design and integrate your own personal backend into it. So then you could bring your backend from anything basically, from anywhere actually, and integrate it with WeWeb. So it could have been a custom code backend, and you could just easily integrate it with WeWeb. So if you're building an internal tool that already had the coded backend or whatever, you could also deploy on WeWeb with your own backend. And that's what made WeWeb beautiful. That was what made it stand out because it made it easier for people to contain things in different sections and made building more seamless than having to put your backend into a particular place and having issues around all of that. But now that we're about its own backend, we're going to be reviewing how it affects your project. So the thing about Weaver's backend is that there's no trade-off, like you can see at the top. No trade-off. You still get to bring your own backend, and you can still use Weaver backend, or you can choose not to, basically. So, and I'm sure they've done a lot of market research regarding allowing people use their own backend, and I think it's good because I think they're trying to capture markets that don't want something too complex. A lot of people actually want to build products, but nothing too complex. And this full stack web actually helps them build that by just coming in, bringing their data or whatever. And I think this backend or this new changes is perfect for people utilizing we were with backend tools like Superbase, Google Sheets, Airtable, more or less. It helps them better because you now have a more robust authentication tool, and you now have a more robust workflow section. You understand? So previously, you could just bring in Google Sheet data, yeah, and display it. But now you can actually use WeWeb Cloud to edit the data and manage the data and basically do whatever you want to do with the data. They also improved the Google Sheets integration from what I understand. I've not tested that out yet, but I think it's all right, more or less. So first thing to note, they have a redesigned editor that is built for full stack applications now. You can, your existing your plugins and all are still the same, yeah, but now they are now inside the interface tab, and you can also they have a data and API section. They have workflows and all of that, and they have settings for your application because, like I said, WeWeb's backend is contained on its own. It's called WeWeb Cloud, so you get database and all, but it doesn't really affect the front end. And the new redesigned editor allows you to manage it properly by knowing that your backend is on its own, and you can also actually integrate your backend into other backend tools. So I could have a data in WeWeb and I could also send it to Xano or Superbase, more or less. They have a native backend, like I said earlier. You now have workflows. You can create schemas, views, generate API endpoints, reusable functions, whatever. And we're going to review each one of them in the video basically, and how you could use them in your projects. They also have integrations. I think I'd have loved to see more integrations, but now they have a better Airtable, better Google Sheets. I've not tested those. Email, I tried testing the recent. They have a meter and storage. Now you can integrate AWS or whatever, whichever one you want. Or you could also use WeWeb storage. You get WeWeb authentication now. Like I said, it's a whole lot more broad and way better. So now you get SSO providers easily. I could just one click and add them to your app, and that saves you a lot of time instead of having to go to your backend, set up the authentication, the redirect URL, do all of that, and then still send it down to WeWeb. They bypass all of that basically with WeWeb authentication, and that's really beautiful because it saves you a lot of time. And another thing about the AI is that they rebuilt the AI to work with the current changes. So now the AI can work with backend workflows, functions, and all of that. And it generates a lot of thinking notes for you to look through, for you to make edits to, and tell the AI, I don't want this, I want that. And that makes it a bit more better. I think if I want to rate AI functions, the no code tools, I think web is in my top three personally. I think the first one, I would say, it's I don't want to name the tool, but I think web is in my top three personally with regarding AI in that tool. Yes, it has a long way to go. I think we still it has a long way to go towards generative AI, where you can see people building crazy stuffs with AI. But I think it's still better, more or less. It's still better. Yeah, I think aside from Xano, in my own experience, Xano is my number one. They are quite close when it comes to integrating AI with their tool. So this is the new changes. I'm going to just go through each one of them briefly. On the left side, still more or less the same, basically. You have your settings, development. So settings is still the same, development still the same. Debugging is now improved. It's different. You can see I have some sections, and you can click on this to take you to those particular places. So you can come there and see your database more or less. Yeah, you can click on this to see your triggers also, and you can just close it. Yeah, and that's that for the debugging. I don't like the fact that it's big basically, and it's being big. It takes a lot of space because when you have you know a space sizing like this and contains this on a large screen, imagine a smaller screen is going to take up a lot of space. So I'd have liked the option to actually minimize that. Yeah, I'd have also liked to see more integrations and better plugins, but I think it's still a work in progress with them. So I guess that's still coming. Figma is still the same. Collection, plugins, formulas, all of them are still the same up to workflows. Workflows has a few changes. So now your page triggers are no more in pages, and now they are in workflows right here. So you can see your page triggers, your application triggers, and your functions more or less in this section. So big triggers now, central station, and you can just switch between your pages, and you can also create a new page trigger. You can, and they also have this new workflow set up right here where you can unload or table um set up functions and all of that because it's pre-existing templates that they have in some sections now. I kind of like the pre-existing templates. If you are building something really small, they still have the same in all of these sections. Yeah, nothing changed that much. And pages, the only notable change is your URL. You can now it's more or less the same. You have this right here. Yeah, for your parameters and for you can also manage it here and add to put your parameters to this. You can also change your pages here and add a page. Another change I would have loved to see is right clicking to add a new section. We still don't have that. I don't know why. But I'd have loved to be able to right click to open the add element section. So I don't need to all, right click and then it pops up somewhere around here or in the middle like we have for workflows. That's that for it. This right here is just for managing your users. Yeah. I can connect as a particular user and go through what the user is currently going through. So I could connect as this user right here. It changes as you can see, and let me. So you can see the data has changed, and I'm now corrected as the particular user. So this actually helps with testing. Basically, I think it's a great improvement regarding testing. I can see what the user is going through. Let's say user is having issues with adding a new expense. I am basically based off the user's data. So whatever error the user is facing, I'll probably be facing it also, except if it's a browser error. Then that you might not face that experience with the user. Or if the database error, you would face the error and know where it's coming from and know how to fix it. And this helps a lot, like a whole lot regarding testing. I can't emphasize how this improves testing for me instead of having to go to the back end, use my own, me testing as a developer is different from what a user is experiencing. So I might not experience data at all But testing as a user in all of this and seeing what the user is going through helps me um, find the issue and solve it better, basically. So everything else is still the same. And where the new major changes are in data and API and settings. Yeah. So we can come there. There's a weird bug regarding this. If I'm coming from different section and it doesn't, it kind of doesn't click properly. But you have to like scroll yeah to get it right. So that's that for this section, and then now we're going to go into the data and API section. So right here we have the backend basically. So don't steal my user ID. I'm going to delete all of this. Um, it's called WeWeb Cloud, and WeWeb Cloud is different from the WeWeb front end. Yeah, even though it's unified together, you can also take data and you could also take basically endpoints from here and you can use them in Xano. So you could get your endpoint URL and use it in Xano basically. And that allows you to extract data from here to use it in your own backend, which is what you call BYOB. You can still bring your backend and you can mix and match it. So let's say you want to store a particular set of data in this section, you understand? You can still use those data right here in Xano. So that's what I think makes it really really beautiful because you could just mix and match it together. So we're going to be looking at doing a quick overview of tables. So right here you have your tables. You can create multiple tables right here. So I just created this table. This is what I call the income table. If I go ahead and delete this table, so I can recreate it. When I delete my table, you'll see it's going to delete all table and its data, and I'm just going to type in income. It's going to delete the data right there, and I'm going to recreate it basically. So you can add a data source into WeWeb Cloud. So this is the thing about WeWeb Cloud, like I said, it allows you to add in your external data. So I could bring in data from my Xano basically, but I don't have Xano connected in this project, and that's for a whole other video on how to use both of them together. So in this case, we're just going to be using the WeWeb table. So we're going to create a table called income. So when we create income, you can see we've created a table right here. So you can create a table and you can create views. Basically, what views are in other backend tools, but in this case, it's a little bit more important than creating tables alone. So views is what allows you to filter through your data. Like what views are basically, but in this case is a bit more important because that is the I think my own personal experience, even though my experience is just a few days old since when they launched. I think creating views to view your data is better than just pulling in the old data into your front end and then filtering. They're basically doing more of the same of things we tell you to try and minimize by not doing a lot of workflows in client side and instead leaving it server side. So let's say you have 1,000 record here, you want to filter it, you don't filter 1,000 record in your front end, you filter it as a view right here. So I advise actually keeping things simple and keep them as a view. So this is a view called user expenses. This one is filtered per the user ID of my current logged in user. This is amount. This was a test when I set up to only give me amounts greater than 50 right here for my expenses. So if let's say a user wants to see amounts based off 50, or let's say I want to see amounts based off a day more or less, you understand, I could pick it from there. So another thing to notice is you cannot use views with like say um external variables. Basically, you can't use external or global variables in your views, right? I'd have loved to have that. Like me, let's say I created a variable in my front end and say, oh, I want to create a view based off that. You would still have to move that client side from what I'm seeing. Yeah. But let's reset this basically. So or basically just even delete the view. And we're gonna create a view. So we've created a view like this. Yeah, we're gonna rename it. So when you create a new view, you see view two, we're gonna rename it. in this section. I'm going to rename it to amount expense. It's supposed to come up paste this, and it's renamed like that. So now you can paginate a particular view per 20, 50, 1,000, whichever one you want. And then you can also filter. So right here is what we really want to do. We really want to filter. Oh, parameters. I think parameters is, yeah. Filter is where you come into and then you set up your filter for a particular view. So we want to get views or want to get records based off a particular user ID. So based on the user's ID right here, and where we have, let's say, and amount is greater than the amount is greater than 50. So you want to see records with 40, 12.99, 55. Even though some of these records are not related to the particular user I'm currently signed in as, is it's going to filter it out to only records greater than 50. And then we can now use that in our front end. So it's going to take a while, and then it's refreshed and it's set up properly. So now you can see we're only getting 200 and 1,500. Um, you can sort your data per whatever you want to. Basically, you can also create a new table. I think we created a new table already. Then you can also use your AI to generate sample data. So I'm just going to do a quick preview of the AI in this section so you can see what it's about. Basically, and you can see it's running the tax. You can see what it's thinking about. Yeah. And when you read this and you see something you don't like, you can edit it based off that, which is why I think it's a bit better than what it used to be, whereby it just said thinking and then it drops whatever it wants to drop for you. You're confused, like, where did this come from? Um, so it's running the actions. You can see reading backend, created backend tables, and this are the income based on my table name. Income, it generated incomes and it related the amounts basically. And that's that for the table. Like quite easy basically. You can just easily create your table, create a view for, let's say, the income, one filter it per user, like I showed earlier. You can see it created for multiple user. You can also easily do it by this. um I can also add another condition for amounts, whatever basically. I'm going to remove this and save that. Now you can see the lead returns for the for two records from my particular current user. And that's that for the view. You get that's how to easily create a table, set up views, and use them in your project. I'll show you how we use them in the front end basically. But let me scroll through backend workflows and each one of those other sections. So backend workflows right here is basically where you have your endpoints, your functions, your middlewares, and your event triggers. So right here you can see this is an API endpoint. You can add a role, delete a role. You can see this is post slash so this trigger for API, but you can run the call either by your interface or by an external service like I said. You can take this endpoint and deploy it and then use it in a external section. So copy webhook URL. That's um, sorry. So you paste it here, and this is what you see. So if you take this and you expand slash add a row, ideally when you deploy it, you get your own personal domain URL. So when you have your domain URL, you can use it as a CRS, a WeWeb. I'm sorry, in Xano or in Superbase to only accept endpoints from that particular domain. But from this, you have your testing, and then you can just it allows you to send the data to this. endpoints basically. That's for endpoints. So when you create a table, you automatically create an endpoint for those tables. So you can see this is so because I didn't select to delete my endpoints for the particular table I created earlier and then deleted. So you also have your settings. You can change it from post to whatever. You can change the folder. You can change the parts. And that's that. Or you can also create a custom endpoint more or less. You can create one for communication, generate content or text for files, scheduling. So if I come in here and I want to create an endpoint for, let's say, send an email notification, it has a preset that you can actually view right here. So if I open this larger, you can view the presets. It's not okay. I don't know why. We can view the preset and see the section of the setup. So I'm just going to create a folder and call it resend, and there's a post record, a post method, and that's it. So this is a note for it, and these are the parameters you need basically. So you can create your parameters right here, add a parameter, and you can use it in your external endpoint. So let's say you want to use it in Xano, so it's use the email content. As you can see, subject, the text, and the HTML, and it sends the email through resend and it sends you your response. So it's basically more or less what you see in Xano. Yeah. So that's that for creating endpoints. This is for triggers, events triggers. The already currently have for WeWeb authentication as a setup for your events triggers. If you want to trigger an event for, let's say, when the magic click is requested, after signing, let's say you want to um, send an email, maybe add the user to a group, or after a password is updated, you want to send an email, you can send it on events, triggers, or authentication functions. Functions are basically reusable functions that you can use in your endpoints. So, like I said earlier, WeWeb Cloud is different from the WeWeb front end. So, you can create multiple functions and it doesn't affect your front end because it's server side logic and it's not client side logic. And you can create a custom one, a file storage. So we can just easily create something like utilities and let's say um, normalize currency and amounts. And when we create that, we can test it. When we test, it needs amount, currency, and decimal. So I'm supposed to set up test values. Let's say 800. What currency am I supposed to add to it? I don't know. US, EU, I don't know what's. And you return your results basically. There's no guide on what to add. But middleware, same before you create an endpoint or before you call an endpoint, that's that. Authentication, you can create available actions. Usually, I like the fact that you get these actions too. You don't have to focus on sign up, sign in, and all of that. You just create it. You can request code, and this I think this uses WeWeb email. I don't know if it uses resend, but you can easily switch it up. Right here, you have your users. This is where you manage your users and you check if the email is verified. You can create, let's say, use your recent and then say when you can say providers email. You can say when the user signs up, click this record as verified. If you want to use a different email setup, this is for rules right here. So I think the beautiful thing, like the really nice thing about WeWeb Unify is that it makes it easier for someone also strong in backend sections to create the app themselves. So you want to do something simple, you want to um it'll create a simple MVP to have a proof of concept for your idea. You can easily come into WeWeb personally without having an external and manage it for you. And I think they're taking jobs away from me. You can easily just come into WeWeb Unify and develop it yourself right here. So you can create your rules right here. And so this is admin. We've created an admin role like that. And you can use it with users basically. can see the role I created is now in this section, and I could, let's say when I'm creating a workflow, whatever, I could say where only the user's role is admin is when we should allow the user to say a particular thing. This is my favorite part of the authentication. You get this. So imagine this amount of single signing to use users' data or to allow users to come in. So you can have Notion, basically almost everything. So for example, if you come down to, I'm looking for the Google setup. So if we've come out to something like this, you just need your client ID and your client secrets in this section right here. And that's that. And once you save it, you can use Google Authentication with your web authentication. For settings, this is where you set up your settings. Once again, really good because you can now set up your settings in different environments for editor, staging, production. And I think this with Web Unify, it put them forward in terms of being a top grade development platform. So now it's not more just front end only. They're actually covering almost every section of development, and it puts them in that place where they are actually quite solid and not more. They're not more a second choice or whatever anymore. Now they have their place in. They always had their place, but now I think it's cemented that they're top three, top five basically. My own personal opinion, they're top three for me, and they're number one in terms of front end too. But now that they're full stack, I don't know what number I'm going to put them in for that, since I've not tested it extensively. But now you can, before they're able to sign into their created accounts, they have to enable email verification. You can prevent sign up password. You can basically set up anything you want to set up right here. You can switch your authentication provider. That's up to you. And storage, yeah, you have a web storage right now. So I'm just setting up a sample storage for this. And when you set up your storage, you can use it in your front end to um, store whatever you want to store, like media files or whatever you have in mind, more or less. I think personally, I would have liked maybe a checklist when you come into a new project and it tells you what you want to set up, and I could just checklist, let's say data, server, this and that, and you should just create everything at once instead of me having to go into them one by one and having to do them single-handedly. And that process could be skipped basically. So you can see this is public, yeah, and this is you can create a folder with it. You can also have private right here. You have your settings. So this is where you see your request. You can read over 100,000. You can write 5,000 records in the file storage, and you have the size of 512. Keep in mind, Um, I'm using the basic plan basically. Yeah. So that's that for the storage with my partner accounts. This is logs, like we showed you earlier. So logs is for the backend function, basically web cloud login. So this is where you log all your data. Let's say you're experiencing an error or something, or a user is experiencing an error. This is where you see all their logs for the incoming calls, more or less. And this is where you have your integrations. Still more or less the same. You have AWS for file storage. You have this PDF and image generation API. If I move this a bit, you can see just that. Not so much changes regarding that. You have Slack. Yeah, you have send rate. They said Stripe is way better now, so you can now create a customer update. So if you want to have a basic Stripe setup, I think you can use the Stripe setting in WeWeb. And this is Airtable right now and Google Sheets, so you can get all row, insert a row, update a row, delete a row, and table as a data source. Um, I think that's that for the back end, basically. I think it's really good. It's a great start. I'm sure we're still going to get more functions, basically. So if I come in here, you can save the body, the query parameters, and you can basically see everything. So even if the all users, you're basically seeing for all your users, and this is for editor, staging, production, you can easily select everything. So it's really good, really. Instead of having to separate your backend, if you're building something simple, I think it's a great choice, more or less. And that's it for the data and API section. And for the settings is quite basic. And then after that, we're just going to do a quick sample in the front end to show you how you can utilize your data and call certain functions, basically. So in this section, we're going to be looking at how to, uh, basically the settings section, the settings tab. So the settings tab is basically quite simple. Yeah, you just have your environmental variables for stuff like custom, recent, authentication, and WeWeb. Basically, like I said, Web Cloud is different from the WeWeb front end, so you get all this more or less. And you also have stuff like this for recent, for authentication also, so you can set up your authentication settings like provider email enabled, password length, all this crazy stuff. You also get to see what your usage basically. You can see my requests, you can see my bandwidth, you can see my compute, my size. So I have 93 MB against 512 regarding data. Personally, I think that's a bit too large considering the fact that I have just two tables and I don't have, so much in regarding record. I think it's just four columns and like maybe in total of 20 or 10 records across both tables, or I think 20 across both tables. So if I'm using almost 100 MB for just that small thing, imagine having a large database, what it's gonna use basically. So now you're gonna be fighting a war against size, whereas in records or in storages or backend like Xano or WeWeb or Superbase, you don't use as much as this. So I think that's one thing to note when you're looking at WeWeb backend for your project. Requests are basically the same. Compute units, I think it's all right. It's quite small for me because I'm still just testing, and I'm 1 hour down out of 15. But like I said, I'm using my partner account, so when you pay, it's a different thing. So we'll look at pricing and compared to the setting. So and you can see for file storage, you can see your read requests. I don't have anything in file storage. I have two email sent. I have zero email sent out of 50. You get the option of over 50 emails and data out, data sent from the server when you're using an external server or an external backend with your data. So it counts for when you use it inside, which is request, and when you send data outside. Um, Monitoring, yeah, this is where you monitor anything that is going on. This is where you see your request, your bandwidth, so your sizing. You can see for April 17th, it was same sizing. So you see your compute, your errors. So wherever you're getting any errors, you can easily manage them in this section. And this is just for the server. Basically, it's more or less the same thing. So we just take a quick look at pricing and we go to the upgrade plan. Um, so we come here into manage plans. You can see the pricing. So this is pricing for WeWeb Cloud. So when you're using the front end only, you get to pay 15 a month for it. You can just subscribe to that. So you're basically just using the front end and you don't have access to any part of WeWeb Cloud. But if you want to use WeWeb Cloud, I think it's just good. Just there's not much difference between the front end and the cloud because you might not know, but you might actually have certain sections where you just actually need to create functions in WeWeb and keep it client side instead of having to create backend or whatever. But it's up to you and it's personal. It's up to personal choices, and this is what you get for the sizing. So when you pay, you get unlimited app sessions. So you're not bound by this anymore. The storage, you get 1 gig for data, you get 5 gig for files, 200 for emails, unlimited API and workflows, unlimited app users. So this usage sections I was showing you, they're basically not bound by most of it anymore. So that's that for the pricing. Interface. So we're just going to do a quick sample of what we have right here. So we're going to show you. I'm just going to show you how you use the database view in a section like this. So right here I have my expenses, and in here I'm supposed to have a list of transactions basically. So I have an item list. So the view I was calling the data from is missing. So right here you can see I can take from my table views. I am not seeing any option for tables. You can see because you can't call in your full table. Instead you call your views, and that's how you use it in the front end. So and you get still the same right here, but instead in this section you call your table view. So if I want to see amount expenses and I click on this, it's only going to show me the amount expenses greater than 50 like I did before. I think this filter I have right here is still for user ID. We don't need it anymore because I'm already filtering based off user ID. So you can see right here, every record here is more than 50, but if I come in and just go for the full user ID here, you you get the full one. And this doesn't negate the fact that you can still use the basic filter more or less. Yeah. You can still come in here and use this filter to then filter down to a more minute section in whatever way you want. So when your ID contains something, you can still filter based off that basically. Um that's what we have for the views section. You can also still use this data in work in sorry, what's it called? You can also use this data to basically almost anything. You can filter, you can search, you can also use filtering for it more or less. And you can also set up formulas with it. And you can still use it with your external backend, which I'll be looking at in another video, working with an external backend and WeWeb cloud and how you should use it and the benefits and all of that. But that's that. We'll just create the sample data and then we'll log how fast it is to create a record basically. So preview this. I'll add an expense of 900 and just type this. I'll select the date to today, and you can see you're logging your data, and the data is logged. I think there was an error somewhere with my workflow. I probably still because I deleted something, my view is probably was causing that error. I'm probably calling the wrong one. So I can call my user expenses view right here. No, no, no. So still supposed to go back. I like this really. I like the fact that I could just click on this and go down to the endpoint itself. Amount, the name. Okay, so that was the error. So it did create it. I just used something else for. Should I bring my notes right here? Not the category. I'm just gonna hide this one right here. I'm gonna hide this and so type another record. Okay, you can see the 900. It did pop up, but it popped up as categories, basically. So 700 and pool. I want to buy a pool. Same day, and it's logging the data. It's adding it up, and you can see now I have pool, and I have this. So I could save. I could save a change, or I could delete the data right here. And when you want to use, any endpoints you've created, you can just come here. So this is another really nice change they made. Yeah, you can add an action. There's a revised design in here. This is also not changed, but when you click on this and when you want to add, you don't have the full list previously. Now you have everything broken down, and I'll kind of generally just advise to search. Yeah, I think it has a quite intelligent search, so I didn't even need to type it fully. Just it kind of brings anything related to what I'm typing in, And so you have your interface, you can do whatever you want in all these sections. So integrations, you can come to Xano API request. If you set up Xano authentication, you see all your authentication. For Superbase, you have your data insert, storage, functions. You can call your edge functions, all of that. See, upload files, segments, plugins. But in my own case, I'm coming to data and API, and you can see I can fetch a data, I can change a page. Last say is like pagination basically. So let's say I want to set up pagination on 1 to 3. This is where I'll have my table view. Let's say income, view one, offset of what you setting it from basically. So that's it for changing a page. You can, in this case, I'm updating a row, but you can also say delete a row like I have in the other action. You can delete a row right here. You can get the row, you can add a row like I'm doing in other sections. So in this case, I'm deleting section and I'm fetching the user expenses more or less. And in this one is where I am deleting a record. So I'm deleting a row, and you can see I just need to set up the row ID for what I want to delete, and it deletes it immediately in database, and then it fetches the record. So if I come here and I delete the pull record I just created, it's deleting the record and it's logging the data. So the record has been deleted, data has been logged because this is what we have in the endpoints basically. So if I come here, you can see the endpoints. Yeah, deleting the row and open the API endpoint, logging the response. This is the response. It was logging, and this is the delete row it was showing. So when you see that, you're basically saying what you have in your base API basically. So that starts with deleting a row, and if I come into my data and API, you're probably not going to see it more or less. You see, there's nothing like pull in here because I have deleted the pull section basically. Um, so that's that for the WeWeb section. That's the workflow. That's the few changes they've made, and personally, I think it's a great start. I think it's good. The pricing is still very fair regardless of other prices. The AI is quite better, but I think it takes more token because it's quite more powerful than it was before. So you know what? Test it out. Let me know what your opinions are. Share your opinions. Like and subscribe to this. Like the video and also subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have any. If you like what you see, you obviously like what you see, so you still have to subscribe. And that's that for this video. Thank you very much.